Story by Midwest Troy 92. No ladder, no problems. I work at a late-night gas station with an indoor convenience area filled to the brim with processed snacks, liquor, breads, candies. We even have rotating hot dogs that I think pose a significant health hazard to the greater Ashland area, Ohio State. But hey, you do you, and I'm getting lost in the weeds. What happened that terrified me? There's a front area with a cash register. I'm right next to it. This is a fairly low crime area, so there's no bulletproof glass or sealed segment. Gas, store, 22-year-old defenseless me. First thing, I feel it. A punch in the air around me, in my chest. A really loud banging on the back door in the small storage area and near the office space. That door is always kept locked automatically, which is annoying when bringing the garbage out, but anyways. I'm alone too, if I didn't say before, and I don't remember the exact time, but it was after midnight. So this banging, from what I'm thinking, is a drunk moron, and it continues on the back door, but again, it's so loud, it's like he has a jackhammer against the frame. But it continues, and I'm frozen in time. What do you even do? Call the cops, probably. I didn't. I hid behind the register counter. All scary enough on its own, but not a mystery. Until the banging stops, and maybe 4 seconds later at most, it starts again on the freaking roof. There was no possible access to the roof. No drop-down ladder or anything at all. However, this person or thing or whatever the hell was up there got there. It wasn't through normal means. Unless he brought a freaking grappling hook, but what the frick? Even if he had, no way. There was a few seconds between the back door banging and it's starting on top. No human can climb that fast even if there was a ladder. It continued for a few seconds and that was it. Stopped and forever. Yeah, I kept working there, and I told no one. My shift was 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. As soon as it was over and I locked up, I booked it. I didn't go back to check the back door that morning, but I did when I came back the next night for my shift, armed with pepper spray, which is all I had to defend myself with. There was no damage to the door, handle, or anything left behind that could help someone climb up to the roof of the station. Like nothing ever happened. Why'd I continue working there? I simply needed the money. Thank God whatever it was never came back. Yeah, stories like this make you wonder, just what is out there? You know, the whole Bigfoot thing and aliens and all that, I don't think this was aliens, for a change. But there are creatures out there, right? Or maybe humans possessed by demons or malevolent spirits. You know, that is something. Does a possession, or by a guardian angel, a spirit, a demon, whatever, actually impart extra physical capability to the human? Even if there was a ladder there, no one could climb it in 3-4 seconds and start banging on the roof that fast. No human being, not that I'm aware of. Like, if you go in the military and where they have those rope climbing challenges, I mean, to get to the top takes at least 4 seconds, and then you'd have to hop off and go start banging. There's no way. So it has to be either a supernaturally enhanced human being, by possession or something else, even if they're on substances, you know. I don't think it's possible. So I think that part is indeed supernatural. I just don't know if it's an external beastly creature or some monster. There aren't as many stories about those. I'm not as bought in as I am for, traditional glitches. But I do think at least spirits and maybe demons, those are real. So that's where I lean with this. But either way, why was he there? Even if that's a story, it was a spirit or demon. Why bang on a random Ohio gas station at night? Was it just the intent to mess with your mind, to scare you? I guess, but you could scare someone much more by just going inside and behaving weirdly. Start crawling on the ceiling. That'll spook someone. Welcome, I'm Paul. This is Dave. Today I have 12 Glitch in the Matrix and paranormal stories for you. My favorite story involves quite the crash. Yeah. Tell me your favorite story, and don't forget to like the video if you feel so inclined. Let's get to it. Story by Trash Brown Z. Prophecy by Burnout. I was at work one Sunday with a coworker friend from high school, and to make this story sound non-insane, I have to preface that we both hate our work. We're stock boys for a local grocery store, not a mega one that's 1 million square feet. One step up from mom and pop. But it's endless stocking, cleaning up aisles from baby disasters which happen much more than you'd think, at least in our area. Stock boy / janitor is more accurate. But we're young in our 20s, and this is paying our dues and crap, right? We get drunk after our shifts almost nightly and play games, eat Doritos, it's fine. It's not permanent. We'll move on to greener pastures eventually, but anyways, with our mindsets locked in, it went as follows. Sunday, mid-shift-ish. My coworker, I'll call him Bob, but that's absolutely not his name, turns to me and says, "You know, it'd be kind of awesome if someone just randomly crashed into the front of the store with their car. You know, without hurting anyone. Think we'd get the shift off and we could finish Dark Souls." It's innocuous to me. I've thought something similar before, but still had to respond with something halfly appropriate, so I said, "Dude." It's fine. Bob's a good friend and person, don't worry. An hour passes. Nope, it was 10 minutes, but felt like an hour. We're towards the back, near the meat and dairy sections, and we hear the jumbled, astonishingly loud crash sound of a vehicle barreling through the store's front. Not at the door, but on the side. All large glass panes. And it continued until it hit one of the 4 register lanes. Bob was carrying some packets of steaks and dropped them. I had already restocked my side and had nothing on me, but I damn well near jumped out of my own skeleton because no one tells you how freaking loud a crash is, especially when it was calm in the moments before. Just a few shoppers at this time and no babies as far as the eye can see. After our hearts drop back to just beating out of our chests, we run to the front to see, indeed, a sedan lodged at the register. And it was the only lane open, too. Running it was Sarah, again, not her real name, who Bob wanted to ask out, but I convinced him not to, because you don't crap where you eat. Come on, bro, use your head. I guess he did here. He rushed to her and helped her calm down. She was still hyperventilating and had a few scratches on her leg from the impact shrapnel and glass spray, but no severe injuries. Only the man who was driving, an older guy who we later learned had a stroke while parking, and his legs must have contracted to floor the vehicle into the store. Now that I think about it, I'm surprised this doesn't happen more frequently. But, even though we were all okay, hours after this happened, it both dawned on us what Bob had said earlier. It's freaking weird, man. He's not a prophet, he has no weird powers or visions, never did before, never did after. Not that I've seen, or that he's told me. Maybe he has thoughts in his mind that he doesn't pour out, but they end up being accurate? Feelings into words, into future predictions, I don't know. It scares me, which is an obvious and fair reaction, I think. Bob didn't look scared, but more confused. Oh, and we did get the shift off. The store owner even paid us for the rest of the shift, and gave us the week off, since emergency services stuck around a bit. Had to repair the front and all that mess. Sucks for him. He's actually a good guy too, so yeah. Next time, I hope Bob's prophecy involves less property damage to good people. Oh, but I have to be the oracle too and ask, but what if Bob had never spoken that thought aloud? Would the man still have had a stroke and crashed into the store? You know, your point is very valid. That this doesn't happen more often is pretty surprising because, as people age, they do get into accidents, but especially when you're talking about strokes or heart attacks, things that would fully debilitate you while driving, you'd think it'd be more frequent. I guess the country is so large that in any given place it's rare, but overall, I haven't really looked into that. How frequently do cars crash into gas stations or supermarkets or stores in general because of an older person that had a stroke or heart attack or whatever? I don't know. You'd think it'd be somewhat common, but It isn't, apparently, at least in my experience. Don't have the actual data for that, but I'm pretty sure it's accurate to say it's not very frequent. So your friend having this premonition, there is no other way to frame it. I mean, there's no knowledge you could have, like mundane knowledge. Like, okay, you could say this person has cardiovascular issues, but to be able to predict it to within a few minutes, what was it, an hour? I don't know. There's no way. There's no amount of information that could lead to that prediction being anywhere remotely probable, right? So it has to be supernatural. Something gave you that information. Maybe it injected that into the conversation, into the zeitgeist between you two for that, particular day, because maybe his guardian angel didn't want you to be in the front. Maybe you avoided going to the front subconsciously without really thinking about it. I don't know. It's possible. That would be my guess on this, though. But really cool. Especially given that this kind of premonition thing never happened again, as far as you know. A one-time thing means that most likely was an external influence that imparted this future knowledge. Story by I Am Literally Insane. 50 Shades of... Wait, what? My store lets dogs come in. We have lots of repeat customers because of this. One of those dogs is a gray poodle I'll call Jane for this story. She's very big, but very sweet. She's the only dog of the ones that come in who can shake hands and give high fives. She loves to be pet, and once barked at me when I couldn't get her fast enough because I was up to my ears in customers. Relax, Jane. She and her owner came in one time when my car broke down in the parking lot of my job, and I almost asked the owner if I could keep her for a while because my car breaking down freaked me out a bit, and she was very calming. Another time, a little girl who was scared of dogs came to me and said there was a dog in the store. Around the corner came a gray snout. It was Jane. I told the girl Jane was very nice, and the worst she would do is bark if she didn't get her pets right away. I say all this to show this dog came in multiple times over the years I've worked there. This isn't a one-time visit. Jane came in regularly, up until about 2 years ago when she and her owner stopped. Yesterday, a brown and white poodle came in. I am excited to make a new doggy friend. I go over to the dog and it wags its tail in excitement. I pet the dog and say, "Well, you're friendly. What's your name?" The owner looks at me and says, "This is Jane." I freeze. Jane is gray. The dog I am currently petting is brown with white paws. I say, "Isn't Jane gray? I swear she's gray." The owner says no, Jane has always been brown and white. I look at the dog. Jane shake. I hold out my hand. Jane sits and shakes. High five. She swings her paws into a high five motion. Yeah, this is the same dog, but she was gray before, not brown and white, gray. Yet the owner said she had always been brown and white. Yet I distinctly remember a gray poodle barking when I didn't pet her. It was a gray poodle that scared the little girl. It was a gray poodle I almost dog snapped the day before my car broke down. Where did that gray dog go? It wasn't a dye job. The owner told me repeatedly she had always been brown and white, but I remember a sweet poodle that was gray. Story by Coordinated Flight. Shared brain cache corrupted. There was this afternoon, a very long, warm summer stretch, where my sister and I were sprawled out in the living room, watching a movie. I'm almost certain it was Red Dawn, the original one, with the grainy woods and that 80s dread, looking like it's filmed through a layer of cold ash. We weren't even talking. We were just there, suspended in a teenage vacuum where you exist in the same room as a sibling for hours without acknowledging that they're even a sentient being, just breathing the same stale air and watching Patrick Swayze hide in the dirt. Then right in the middle of a scene, nothing even explosive, just gray hopelessness, we both spoke simultaneously. It makes me not want to breathe. We said it at exactly the same time. Not just the same words, but the same inflection. The same dead drop at the end of the sentence, a perfect, unrehearsed unison that hit the room and stayed there. It wasn't like a jinx moment. It didn't feel funny or like something we should laugh about. It felt like a physical glitch, like the code for the two of us had briefly collapsed into a single line, and for 1 second, we were sharing the same nervous system, hell, the same brain. I remember looking at her, and she looked back, and there was this brief, sharp spike of actual genuine fear, because how do two separate brains decide to output that specific clunky string of words at the same millisecond? I'm not spiritual at all, nor is my sister, and while we have some similarities, our personalities are extremely divergent. Sometimes I think about the physics of it, the way the sound waves must have left our throats and collided in the air between the couch and the TV, canceling each other out or doubling the notes of the air until it felt like we actually couldn't draw a breath, even if we wanted to. We never talked about it afterward. We just kept watching the movie, but the room felt different, or maybe I felt different. Like I'd been caught in a mechanism I wasn't supposed to see. It's been years and I still get this cold, creeping sensation in my chest when I see a screenshot of that film. A reminder that there are these hidden tethers between us that don't always make sense and probably aren't supposed to. So I think that proximity is what can entangle particles, and with sufficient activity can entangle people as well. Not as deeply as a particle, of course, communicating over vast distances instantaneously, faster than light, which is a whole, completely crazy thing when you consider the implications of that. Even though it's no real information traveling, let's not go down that road, but it's pretty cool just to know. But I think that human minds, human souls, can become entangled enough to complete each other's thoughts, have the same thoughts, like in this case. I don't even know if it's really a glitch per se. It's more what happens when two people are really rooted and connected. Even if your personalities are different, like they say opposites attract. I think there's some truth to that. Not necessarily all the time. There can be opposites where especially personality types don't complement each other. But often it's more an exact similar person doesn't really mesh. Like I am, for the Myers-Briggs type, INTJ, which I can interact with anyone, but in terms of someone I really enjoy interacting with, it's actually generally people who are more outwardly energetic and extroverted, because that complements my more reserved nature and not really extroverted nature. So I think you want someone that fills in your gaps, right? I think so anyways. To an extent. You also want to have shared interests, so you can't have opposites where you have nothing in common. But personality types, yeah, that lands well. So I think, in fact, that you are opposites actually reminds me of, this is so weird, Dragon Ball Z, where fusions are more pronounced when it's an opposite pair, like your rival or something. Because you're filling in each other's gaps. It just makes sense to me, yeah. And it's the same thing in physics. You have two magnetic charges of the same type, and they're going to repel each other. It's just, you can't be too similar. You need some similarities, but the general vibe has to complement the other person. Right, Dave? Story by Bird in a Nest. Briefly selected by the RNG gods. I saw 4 numbers quickly flash before my eyes, just popped up out of nowhere one afternoon while I was zoning out on the couch. Nothing like this has ever happened to me before, and let me tell you, you perk up right away when it does. The numbers were inside my vision, if you can imagine that. I went to the neighborhood bodega to bet on them, and I'm not sure why. I had an instinct to do so, like I was afflicted with Felix Felicis or whatever the Harry Potter luck potion was. The guy behind the counter didn't even blink, just punched them in like it was any other day, not perturbed by my exuberance at all. That night, I watched the daily numbers announced on TV, and sure enough, they were the same numbers. Free moolah, baby. The way they lit up on the screen felt almost too perfect though. Like the universe had slipped me a note and I actually read it right for once? But was I even supposed to see it? I remember laughing out loud in my little apartment because this goes so far beyond luck, it's nutty. Cashed the ticket the next morning, expecting them to say nah, those weren't the numbers. But they paid out clean, no scam. Nothing like this ever happened again, though. Sometimes I wonder if I imagined the flash, or if something was just nudging me along for a minute. Either way, that wind tasted sweet for weeks after. Over $5,000! Story by Bonga Bonga, Mickey Mouse and the Missing Employee. I stopped by an antique store in my neighborhood on my way to meet a friend. Said hi to the owner couple as usual. They were assisting some customer. I was just killing time, and I saw an old Mickey Mouse pin on a shelf behind glass and figured I'd wait till the owners were done assisting to ask them about the pin. Then, an older lady behind the counter asked if I needed assistance. I hadn't seen her before at the store or noticed her when I came in, but I asked about the pin. She gave me some info, pointed at something else, but said that she couldn't open any cabinets and that I'd have to get help from the new owners. I just said, "Sure, thanks, I'll wait," or something like that, and browsed while I waited. The lady, I remember, was kind, but a bit too old to be working there. After a few minutes, the owners were still busy, and I had to leave, and as I was heading out, one of the owners asked if I had a question about something, and said that I had looked deep in thought, mumbling to myself by the counter. I said I had asked the lady about a Mickey Mouse pin, and that I'd be back the next day to check it out. The owner said, "Which lady?" and looked at the desk, and there was no one there, and no one in the store apart from myself, the owners, and that customer. There was a back room at the store, but it was right next to the entrance, where I was now standing. So the old lady would have had to pass me on the way out, which, in this tiny shelf-crowded store, wasn't possible. I felt a bit weird, but mostly stupid, and said, "Ha, yeah, and goodbye," and left. And when I walked past the windows, I swear I saw the older lady standing behind the counter again. Some time later, I visited the store, checked out the pin, but felt weird about it and knew that if I'd buy the pin, I'd probably always think about this lady, who I seriously don't believe existed at all, or something, I don't know. Story by ArtenRez57, Catch of the Day. Sounds weird, but when I'm doing dishes, I think. Last week, as I was washing up, I thought about my brother who passed over 10 years ago at age 51. He and I had periods of estrangement, and we weren't super close. I thought about some of his life choices that led to his demise and felt very sad about it all. It seemed like he could never catch a break, even after he cleaned up his act and got sober. Crisis after crisis would happen to him, and then one day he was diagnosed with lung cancer. In my head, I told him I was sorry that his life had not been great, and I hoped he was happy now, wherever he is. A couple of hours later, I was tidying up, and I noticed what looked like a small piece of paper on the living room floor, right in the middle of the room. I picked it up and turned it over. It was an old black and white photo from the 70s of my brother at about age 9. He was holding up a fish he had caught with a huge grin on his face. Fishing was his lifelong joy, and he did it until his health gave out. For the life of me, I can't figure out how that photo would have gotten there. I did have a box of family photos sitting in the hallway that I'd been meaning to carry to the basement. But there was a heavy lamp on top of the box, and I hadn't gone through any of the photos. They came from my sister, who didn't have space for them. So, I like to think it was a small sign from my brother, that he is doing okay and is happy. Maybe even fishing in some heavenly lake somewhere. Story by Sifat Siddiq, The Shadow on a Strict Diet. Back in college, I rented a cheap basement apartment in a house built in the 20s. One night, a brutal thunderstorm knocked the power out across the entire grid. Pitch black, dead silence, except for the rain hammering down like it wanted to. I lit a single candle, set it on the kitchen island, and sat on the couch trying to wait it out. I was 20 and broke, there's nothing else to do. About 20 minutes later, the ambient temperature plummeted. I could actually see my own breath fogging out in little clouds that hung there too long. I looked up toward the kitchen. The candle was still burning, but the flame cast no shadow on the wall behind it. Instead, right beside the candle, a distinct towering shadow of a man stretched across the plaster, swaying slightly, as if breathing in time with something I couldn't hear. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and grabbed my phone flashlight. The second the light hit the wall, the shadow vanished just like that, leaving the plaster blank again, except for the faint flicker of the real candle. My heart was doing a stupid thud thing, but I stayed put for a minute longer, hoping I wasn't having a heart attack, staring at the spot where it had been, wondering if the cold had messed with my head, or if the old house had decided to show me something it kept down there in the dark, far away from people. The power stayed out for 2 more days, and I spent both of them sleeping in a booth at a local diner, with the vinyl sticky under my cheek. But at least there were lights and people, and no swaying shadows that didn't belong to anything real. Never did figure out what that was. I still don't light candles alone in an old place, though. Story by Whimsical Feeling. A rain check for 2. I was driving downtown Los Angeles in the middle of the afternoon. A perfectly sunny LA day, not a cloud in the sky. Traffic had a lazy afternoon drag to it, where everything feels slowed down on purpose. I stopped at a stoplight, and then suddenly it started pouring rain on my car, and the one directly next to me, but just our cars. The rest of the street stayed bone dry, like someone drew a line down the middle of the road, and said only here. The other driver and I looked at each other completely bewildered and scared. I'm craning my neck up, trying to see if maybe it's something being poured off a roof, but there was nothing directly above or on any neighboring roofs. After 30 seconds, the light changed, and I had to move the next block completely free of any sign of rain. I pulled over a couple minutes later, heart still thumping a little, because what the hell? Checked the hood for streaks or whatever, and it was just clean water droplets like after a rainstorm, with no smell, no weird color, nothing gross. My brain kept looping back to airplane waste tanks the whole way home, but it didn't fit. Again, everything was clean. It was so weird I still can't explain it. The sun never stopped shining, there were no clouds anywhere. But I sat there when I got home, just staring at the wet spots drying up, wondering if I'd hallucinated the whole thing, but I couldn't have because the other woman was there too. Was this some kind of extremely elaborate prank? I don't get it. Well, you went through the ideas I had in my head. I think there are weather phenomena where very small clouds that you probably couldn't see from the ground could unleash a great burst of rain. But I don't know, for the amount of time that would be implied, like you're stopped at a stoplight, I'm guessing for minutes, maybe at least a few seconds, that it continued. I don't know if you parked and looked back and if it moved at all. That's the other thing, that the rain probably wouldn't be in just one specific spot. This literally happens in the Truman Show, right? Where he's just on the beach and they cue up "Enter the Rain" because he's in a sad moment or something. So I don't know if there was any melancholy in your soul at that time, but yeah, kind of seems like that, right? I don't think you're actually in the Truman Show, but maybe we all are on the Truman Show. That's a even more disturbing thought, right? We're on the Truman Show for aliens or something, because I always have to inject aliens into the dynamic, some of the equation. Yeah, maybe we'll find out one day. Story by Granny Gumjobs. Flip the switch, see the truth. I went for my driver's permit test, and they started with a vision test by looking into this little box with a screen inside. I was going through them one by one, relatively fine, but eventually, the guy asked me to read off the numbers that were being shown, entirely blank. I told the proctor this, and he looked confused and asked the guy behind me to look inside. He read off a number. The proctor told me to visit my eye doctor to see what's up with my eyes. I went to the eye doctor, and they did their tests, including an additional test for color blindness, which I passed with no problem. The doctor said my glasses needed a bit of an update, but other than that, She had no idea why I would have an issue with the exam. The whole thing left me standing there blinking at her, like maybe I'd imagined the blank screen. I returned to the testing site for round 2, and everything went exactly as it did the first time. Red triangle, the number 36 is blue, yada yada, until eventually the guy asked me what the number is on the screen. Blank. After a bit of back and forth with the proctor about having been to the optometrist, one of the other proctors perks his head up and says, "Oh, hold on," and flips a switch behind their desk. The number 85 appears clear as day. The proctor I'd been talking to looked a little confused and went, "Oh, okay," and we proceeded as normal until I passed and was allowed to take the written section of the exam. To this day, I have no idea what that switch was or why I couldn't see what the person behind me saw. The way the light shifted or something in the machine, maybe, but it never sat right, because why would the first proctor not understand there was a switch or whatever it did that shifted it? And I'm not colorblind, so what would cause me not being able to see a number that other people could? It's just very odd. Story by Anonymous Loner Forver, 50 yards of unfinished business. I saw my dead father 3 times in the 10 years since he died. Once in the mountains with my high school girlfriend's family, once in Japan, and once at about 2 a.m. while working at a former job. I haven't seen him since, but it's always been a what the frick moment for me that just lingers in moments when I'm not expecting it. You'd ask how he appears like a normal human. I suppose always staring at me, which gave me the uneasy feeling of someone watching me. You know when anyone within 50 yards is watching at you and you get a feeling crawling up your neck? At the mountains, he was on a bridge looking over the creek, the one I was staring at, and people appearing to walk around him like he wasn't even there, but he was solid as anything. Then he turned and walked off. I ran over to the area and found nothing, just an empty bridge and the water rushing below the same as before. In Japan, it was at the Peace Park. He was on top of some stairs, looking over at the people, and then turned and walked away again. I ran over and found nothing, the steps still warm from the sun. Maybe or maybe not. When I was at work, it wasn't a great area, as it had a lot of homeless living in the woods, but he was standing under the only light in the back. He smiled, and once again turned to walk away, but this time towards the woods, making no sound at all. I didn't follow this time, as I was locked into the area, but the features were all there, the way his shoulders sat, the same old jacket maybe. This was also about the same time as when I had my daughter. The overlap still messes with my head sometime, like he was checking in or something, but who knows? Never figured any of it out. Story by Independent Tax 7366, St. Anthony's Side Hustle. So one day, I, 21 female, went to the supermarket because I was craving chocolate. It's literally a 2-minute walk from my apartment, so I just threw a coat over my pajamas and went. I remember putting my wallet in my pocket, paying, putting it back, and going home. When I got back, I left my coat on a chair since I was going to wear it again the next day. Next morning arrives, I'm getting ready for college, put the jacket on, and where's my wallet? I searched everywhere, my bag, drawers, even under my bed, remember the spot, and nothing was there. Kinda started panicking because it had everything, my bank cards, ID, my Metro pass, so I couldn't even go to class since I go by Metro every day. Then somehow, while searching my desk for the 10,000th time, my Metro pass just appears, but only that. How does that even make sense if it was inside my wallet, which had completely disappeared? Anyway, I went to class, and then I went to the bank, canceled everything, and remade my ID, which was a huge pain. Then yesterday, I'm changing into pajamas, and a 1-pound coin falls under my bed. I bend down to grab it, and there's my wallet, under my bed. But the coin, gone. Couldn't find it. And I swear I had already checked multiple times and even vacuumed under there, and found nothing. Okay, and the weirdest part is that the weekend I found my wallet, my parents had gone on a trip by themselves. When they got back, they told me they had visited a church called Igreja de Santo Antonio das Casas Perdidas, basically, Saint Anthony of Lost Things, who's supposedly linked to finding stuff you lost, and they said they've prayed for me. I'm not religious, but that was weird and too much of a coincidence, so yeah, I'm just glad I found my wallet. Now time for the jokes of the day. The doctor asked me on a scale of 1 to 10 what my arthritic pain level was. I told him pi. He asked, pi? I said, yes, my pain is a little greater than 3, and it's continuously shifting slightly, but never ending. Such an irrational pain. My wife went to the spa today and got a bikini wax. She told me it made her feel like $1 million. I said she looked like a Brazilian. I asked the surgeon if I could administer my own anesthesia. He said, sure, knock yourself out. Gotta get a good right hook in. Why is your nose in the middle of your face? Because it's the center. A drunk guy wakes up in jail and says, why am I here, officer? For drinking, replies the cop. Great, says the man. When do we start? Video Pure for more glitches. Check him out, and see you next time.